Thanks to everybody for coming by and spending your lunch hour here. Well, if you're here in the Midwest, spending your lunch hour with us. Ali Schwartz from Yelp. I know we show Emily up here. Emily is a last minute cancellation, but we were fortunate enough to have Ali come in and help out. And so I'm just going to go through some preliminaries real quick, and then we'll get right to Ali's presentation. So some upcoming events, craft marketing. This is on the last Tuesday of the month on the 29th. We will have Steve Robinson. He'll be talking about ABM, the many faces of ABM. And it's going to be a great event, and we'll be in person at Capitol Brewery. I will apologize if you hear my dog in the background, and Ali has apologized if we hear any sirens in the background. She is in the heart of New York City. And then for those of you that are not AMA members, I think there's a few of you that are here. Want to welcome you first of all for coming in. You can easily become a member of the AMA. It's a great opportunity to network with other marketing professionals here in the Madison area, but also a lot of our events are virtual, and you also have the opportunity to meet people from any city in the US. So I think we have 70 AMA chapters around the country. Opportunity to learn from experts in conversations like this, presentations like this. We can also connect you with local resources. So you're wondering, you need someone help you with your SEO, your digital ad campaign. We can always connect you with local resources. AMA also offers a lot of opportunities to learn new skills, and so much more. And we have a local Slack channel that is open to you as well. And actually, I think it's open to anybody there at amamadison.slack.com. So come on in, join the conversation. You can also volunteer with us. We have a number of opportunities out there right now, from programming to someone who reports on events, builds blogs for our events. We're looking for a webmaster, membership, someone to help out with membership, and a DEI coordinator. So you can learn more at the website that's down at the bottom of the page. And with that, I will not introduce Emily, but I will be introducing Ali Schwartz. Ali is a senior marketing manager at Yelp based in New York. She's been with Yelp for 7 years. She does a lot of education with small businesses, helps them in how to use the tool, educates them on online reputation management, and also helps out with video content and marketing content for Yelp as well, marketing programs for Yelp. So without further ado, I'll bring to the big screen Ali Schwartz from Yelp. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Yes, I apologize on behalf of Emily that she can't be with us today. Steve, you're not alone. Oftentimes people are like, Emily, no, Ali, like the names sound very similar. But I promise to answer all of your questions and deliver the same content that Emily would have delivered. As Steve mentioned, I've been with the company for over 7 years. I love working with marketers and small business owners. And I'm glad that we're talking about reviews today, reviews and reputation management. It is, a topic that can be really sensitive sometimes when it comes to reviews about your product, your businesses, or your services. And so hopefully today I can shed some light on how Yelp approaches that, and a lot of the tactics that we'll talk about can be applied to some of the other platforms. And I'll make sure I leave a good chunk of time open for Q&A. And if things kind of come to mind throughout when I'm on a certain topic, feel free to pop it in the chat, and I'll do my best to keep an eye on it. That being said, let me share my screen. Steve, I don't know if it'll let me.
I'll stop sharing right now.
Okay, perfect. There we go. All right. So 5-star state of mind. Quick overview, quick agenda. We'll talk about consumer behavior. We're living through some really unprecedented times. So reviews have to do with everything. People write reviews about the way they feel, what they maybe consumed, what they had, what they tried, what they liked, what they didn't like. And so kind of taking the marketer hat off and putting the consumer hat on. We'll talk through that for just a few minutes to get us started, and how do you build that consumer trust to make sure that you stay top of mind. We'll quickly segue into leveraging Yelp's free tools by logging into your page and updating your information. And then we'll get to reviews, the bulk of the presentation. How do you respond to good reviews? How do you respond to bad reviews? How do you get more reviews? All the things we will cover. So first, to kick us off, consumer behavior. And when you think about what goes into the decision-making process of someone that does want to make a buying decision, how do people make those? Well, 97% of them read online reviews for businesses. This middle stat is my favorite. 85% trust online reviews, just as much as a personal recommendation, which was definitely not the case 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, it's like, you don't necessarily rely on what's online. You ask a friend or a relative or a neighbor, someone you trust, hey, where should I go for fill in the blank, right? But now people are really relying on what they see and they read online. So making sure you have a strategy in place for it is important, more important now than ever. And reviews influence decisions. As I mentioned, this isn't just about Yelp reviews. What might have seemed as a trend maybe 15 or so years ago are now the way of life, right? Like Amazon, we all know someone, or we all might be that person that reads like hundreds of product Amazon reviews before we make a buying decision, right? Rotten Tomatoes, maybe you don't go watch a certain movie because of what the overall star rating is, or Uber, you actually can't be an Uber driver if your rating drops below 4 stars. So reviews are incorporated into many of the brands and therefore decisions that consumers are making today. And then just to quickly spotlight Yelp, I think that, throughout my time, I hear a lot of misconceptions when it comes to Yelp, that maybe folks that are using Yelp are really young, or just some college student that is looking for a quick buck. But I do want to highlight that we are not Groupon. We are not offering like deals and things of that nature. We are a local business directory. And when you come onto the platform, you have to do a search for something in a certain area to generate a list of results. So we're a search engine that generates local business directory, but over 50% of Yelp users have an annual household income of 100,000 or more. So the reason why I call this out is just to showcase that the people that are using the platform are educated and they have a good income. And again, it's not necessarily like your high school student that's like, let me go onto Yelp and like rip to shreds this new business. Like, it isn't like that. And I think that sometimes publicity and the PR and news and the way in which Yelp can be portrayed is just against what we have here factually. And over 92% of consumers make a purchase after visiting Yelp, which makes sense, right? If someone, all they could find when it comes to Yelp is a local business, it makes sense that they're going to go and then make a purchase. It's a little bit different intentions wise than maybe just like a regular Google search, or if you're scrolling on Instagram and you happen to see something, like, you're not necessarily doing a search on Yelp for fun, right? The intention is you want to buy, you want to find that local business to go to. It's just a matter of where you're going to go spend your money when you're, again, thinking as a consumer, which at the end of the day, we are all consumers. And when we think of like Facebook, it's, maybe I want to connect with an old friend. Instagram, you want to, double tap, engage, and Google, you want to learn, right? And when it comes to Yelp, again, the differentiator there is just that folks are a little bit more likely to make a purchase and buy. That being said, the reviews that come across all of these platforms and more, it's equally important to make sure that you stay on top of it and have a strategy in place across all platforms. So before we get into reviews, I do just want to very quickly, and Steve, I can share this presentation with you and you're welcome to share it with the rest of the group. But, we're living in these crazy, unprecedented times. And so I just want to equip you, if you happen to run your own Yelp page or have clients or businesses that you work with that have Yelp pages, just shed light on some of the free tools that we've come out with over the course of the last 2 years to make sure that we help businesses communicate what's going on. And hopefully, whether you have a Yelp page or not, these ideas also help you think of what you can say and communicate when it comes to an Instagram story or your website or any other platform. So you want to create a clear, concise, and consistent message. I know in New York, they just lifted the mask mandate. Things are different across states. Consumers are hearing things from all over the place. And so because of that, you want to make sure you're listing out what your business's policies are. This way, if a more conservative consumer isn't comfortable going to a business that isn't enforcing masks, like they know what to expect, and there's isn't going to be like bad reviews because of that. And it could make more sense on the back end if you're more of a product-based business, like what are you doing for your employees, for your staff? Like, what are you doing as a business owner or manager to ensure that you are operating with safety? And you'd be surprised at how much consumers really appreciate that type of information. So specifically when it comes to Yelp, we came out with a bunch of new features on your page that are all free. One is the COVID-19 update. It can be something like we had to shut our doors. It could be something like nothing's changed and we're here to stay and we're open. It's just like a nice 2-sentencer that gets populated at the top of your Yelp page. Then we have safety measures. Again, just communicating, being really clear about what is going on and what your policies are as things are, changing constantly. And then also just mentioning like any service offerings that might have changed. I'm not sure entirely how relevant it is for folks on this call, but if you used to offer like some type of in-person service and now that is virtual, like there is a place to also showcase that, or maybe you have the opportunity for both virtual and in person. And then I always like to say, tell people, but show them. You don't want to show instead of telling, you want to show and tell. So, protective barriers, if that's something that you or your clients have in the space, like definitely showcase that. And it doesn't just have to be like within the realm of your Yelp page, but also like on your socials as well. And this is actually an example of a cycling studio that Emily, who was originally going to present, had found. It's a place in Chicago, and she just absolutely loved, and we now talk about in our presentations, the way in which they communicated what was going on. This is pulled from an Instagram story. So you just see, again, they're over communicating. They didn't do it in just one post. They took 8 posts to showcase like what they were doing to make sure that their clients, their consumers felt safe to go to them. So just when you think it might be a little bit oversharing, it's never too much, whether it's in a newsletter and emails, on your socials, like make sure that you mention what is going on. So leveraging Yelp's free tools, we'll quickly talk about like the 3 most important things that you should be updating as it pertains to Yelp and Yelp pages, and then we'll dive into reviews. So there are millions of businesses on Yelp. And so a great way to make your page stand out is just to log into it and actually add like some pretty basic information. And the beauty of your Yelp page is that it isn't social, meaning you don't have to constantly think of new like content ideas. It can function almost as a website. So I don't want to say set it and forget it, because it's good to stay on top of it, especially when it comes to reviews. But there are definitely some things that you can do to make yourself stand out. It's totally free to claim or log into your Yelp business page. And once you do and you get situated in the page, there's a tab called business information. That's going to be step 1. Just update your basic information. I know it seems silly, but again, when we think about reviews, we want to make sure we're equipping consumers with all the information they need so that there's no confusion. When consumers are confused, that can often lead to a bad review. I was trying to find their phone number and I couldn't. I was trying to call them. I was trying to fill out a form, email them, go to their website. Your Yelp page and other platforms, just make sure that you have information present, because at the end of the day, that's really what consumers want, is information. They want to feel safe that if they spend their money with you, it's money well spent. So refreshing your basic information, that's your name, address, phone number, website, categories, attributes, all the basic things. And again, totally free. Your hours, if you happen to be a business that has a brick and mortar location where consumers can walk into your business, you're going to want to note that as holidays come up throughout the course of the year, you can actually set special hours, and you can set them now for even like, Christmas, end of year, this year. Again, you can set it and forget it. And again, you just want to make sure you're over communicating, over sharing, so that no one's heading into your business and you happen to be closed that day, or you ran out for an appointment, like you can update it just on a whim. And then further information. So your specialties, your history, your meet the owner, there's kind of set parts on your Yelp page that it's important, but you can kind of take some of this and update your website with it, or some other areas, or some of the other platforms where your business is listed. But I like to think of your specialty section, where if someone said to you, hey, do you offer blank? If your answer is yes, that should be in your specialty section in sentence form. So we offer ABCD, tell us everything that you offer. Your specialties also operate as keywords on your page. So as marketers, and as Yelp being a search engine, we want to make sure we're delivering what best matches the page with our consumers. So you want to make sure that you keep that updated and keep that in mind. Tell us the history of your business, and of course, tell us about you, the owner or manager, or if you're helping your clients, like write something that's a little bit more about them. Okay, so uploading basic information and then uploading your photos. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And as a lot of marketers on the call know, that it's so important and it really functions as like your digital window display. So any platform where your business is listed, you want to make sure that you're showcasing photos of what you provide, of the services, of the products, of you, if you're comfortable, the team, interior, exterior. Again, if you're brick and mortar, or if your clients are, like the parking lot. I know in New York City, I tell a lot of my businesses, are you on the third floor? Are you on top of a restaurant? Are you around the corner? Is the elevator hard to find? Show us pictures. Again, equipping people with information. You want to surprise and delight customers and clients, but not in the wrong way, right? You want to surprise and delight them with customer service, and exceeding their expectations, but not with confusion. So show them, again, tell them, but also show them through photos what they can expect, and the friendly faces they might see that will answer a phone call if someone calls in. Are there any questions on anything that we covered? I just want to take a moment and ask, and then again, I'll leave time at the end, but before we kind of jump into the bulk of the presentation, which is reviews, is there any questions?
I'm going to ask a quick question in terms of the photos and images. I mean, are you looking, should we be employing practices that I think you might do for an SEO in terms of how you name those images, alt tags on images, those types of things? Are those as important in Yelp?
Yes, they are. And I'm really glad you said that. And I'm really glad you asked that. Captions definitely play into keywords. And so they're really important. And users and consumers are smart, meaning you don't want to spam your own caption, your own page, your own photo with the same words with different tenses, but you certainly want to keep that in mind rather than a picture of just stating what's in the picture. Feel free to say, we also offer these are other things you could expect. So the short answer is yes, that definitely comes into play.
Okay, terrific. Sherry Hellenbrand has a question. If you have more than one location, can you have just one login?
Yes, you can. Great question. So it depends on, if you have two brick and mortar locations, you will want to have two separate Yelp pages, but you can edit them and they can all be accessible through just one kind of email and password login. You need two separate pages because if it's two separate locations, it's two separate experiences, like what the space looks like and things like that. If you're a service-based business only that operates out of a couple of different cities, that's where you don't have to have multiple actual pages, and you can just have either a servicing area on your page, or that's something you can mention in your specialties, like where you service out to.
Okay, so Sherry says that they're a service with 6 locations.
Service with 6 locations. So if it's within 100-mile radius, it could be on one page, and you can fill out one of our free features, which is called a servicing area. And you put in 5 zip codes, the tip of the zip codes, and it fills in a shaded area. Again, when you log into your Yelp page, it's called servicing area, and it'll prompt you and say where's the furthest most places out of the radius that you're willing to go, and they'll fill in that area for you.
That's great. Sherry, you can also take yourself off mute. I mean, folks, we're a small enough group today. If we want to take ourselves off mute to clarify, ask Allie to clarify. We don't have to do everything
Sure.
through the chat. So appreciate it. And Sherry saying thanks.
Cool.
All right. Anybody else? All right. March on, Allie.
All right, cool. So reviews. 53% of consumers expect to receive a review response, and businesses that respond see a 10% upgrade in their star rating on Yelp. Now, I don't know the specific stats when it comes to other platforms, but I do know this to be true in terms of seeing an uptick in your overall star rating once you respond. And it's so interesting because when you think about the real world and if someone was in front of you giving you feedback, whether it's good or bad, you would engage with them, right? You would talk with them. But when it comes to reviews online, you have to treat it the same, because especially nowadays in 2022, we live in such a virtual world now more than ever. You want to make sure you are treating people the way you would treat them in person, which is you're not ignoring anyone. Now, with that being said, I talk to a lot of businesses that just have a large influx of reviews across 10 different platforms, meaning like they have reviews on their Google page, on their Facebook page, on their Yelp page, and sometimes it's just not manageable to answer every person, and that's okay. But making sure that you have a strategy in place for it is really important. Something interesting regarding Yelp, I know I spoke a few minutes ago about some of the myths that come along with Yelp, like, oh, it's just, a college or a high school person that's just like out to get a business, which we know now isn't true. But something else that comes up a lot is that people only write reviews, or they only go on to Yelp to complain. And that isn't true. For the last 15 plus years that we've been around, every single quarter, we do an analysis of the hundreds of millions of reviews that we have on our platform. And we found that almost 80% of the reviews are neutral to positive. And what's really interesting about this graph is that we actually have more 5-star reviews on the platform as a whole than 1, 2, and 3-star reviews combined. So people are way more likely to talk about the positive than the negative, which goes against kind of like human instinct. And you might think like people just want to badmouth when, something happens to them. But we are finding that time and time again, month after month that we tested, or quarter after quarter, we have more 5-star reviews on the platform than 1, 2, and 3-star reviews combined. And I can't speak to how the reviews are divvied up from other platforms, but my suspicion is that it's somewhat similar. Again, that people want to really talk about the positive experience that they have. And in our 1-star reviews, when we take a look at what is the biggest complaint, it's customer service. People just want to be treated the right way. And if something goes wrong, which we're all human, no one is perfect, when you reach a certain level, you are bound to get a bad review somewhere along the way. It happens, but people really just want to feel seen and heard. And if you make that happen, they might be likely to update that star rating or become a patron again of your business because of the way you handled it. So something to keep in mind. I love this book. This is not like a Yelp centric book at all. It's a review book. It's called Hug Your Haters by Jay Bear. It is phenomenal. He basically just talks about how everyone that is talking about your business is an opportunity to make money, and that you should be answering every complaint in every channel every single time. He almost goes along the lines of there's no such thing as bad press, but he explains it in a much better way. And he really dives into what do you do when you have people that are your haters that are hating on you? How do you handle that as a business? So highly recommend this book. I'll talk a little bit about responding to reviews, both critical, meaning a 1, 2, maybe even a 3-star review, and then how to respond to a positive review. So specifically when it comes to Yelp, you have 2 options. You can publicly comment, or you can send a direct message. On other platforms, those options are pretty common as well. For us here at Yelp, we are advising that you leave a public comment most of the time. So there are a few different types of critical reviews. There's a legitimate review, an inaccurate review, and a rant. So you can think of a legitimate review something just went wrong. Like it was your bad. Like something happened again. We're all human. And like the person in their complaint is legit, is something you agree with, is like, okay, this happened and we need to make it right. When you have that, you do want to leave a public comment, and it's twofold. One is for that person, for that consumer, but arguably more so, it's actually for someone else that will see that response. And the way I like to, have people think about it is, if you're at a restaurant, let's say, and the people next to you are just so incredibly rude to the server, they're just like nasty and so rude. If that server is really polite and like has great customer service and customer excellence, like you really appreciate, you see that as an onlooker, as a third party, and you appreciate that. Maybe that's going to make you be nicer to that server. Maybe it's going to make you tip them more. I don't know. But it's really insight into like how a business handles conflict. Now, on the flip side of that, if that server, if a customer is being really rude and that server then is like totally rude back, like hits way below the belt, is like screaming at them, it's like a little bit, you're probably a little bit turned off to that restaurant as a whole. And so think about that when you're responding. Someone is bringing conflict to you, right? I was unhappy with blank. How you respond, you're the server in this situation. And when someone else sees the way in which you responded, more times than not, it can actually work to your advantage to make sure that you respond professionally and in a polite way. And, it's really easy to put the caps lock on and like go to town on this person, but just keep in mind that you're not only trying to win them over and resolve it, but more so trying to showcase what your principles and customer service guidelines are for other people that see that response. So that's legitimate. And that applies across the board when you're writing your public comment, it's a public comment. If there's an inaccurate review, like this person has it wrong, definitely set the record straight within that public comment. So again, people can see that. And then let's just say there's a rant, like, a middle school sized essay on your page. We see those from time and time again. Remember that consumers are smart, and not only are they probably not taking the time to read the full thing or hit the ellipses to continue to read, but they can see and they can suss out when the person who's writing it is unreasonable. We like to say, like, don't poke the bear, don't poke the crazy. So if there's like a huge rant, you might want to just try and take that offline, or specifically on Yelp, you can send a direct message, and not necessarily get into this kind of like online battle with your boxing gloves. And I would recommend that across all platforms. So if you have a negative review, I like to tell the businesses I work with, no matter what, unless the customer that wrote this really long review and it's like they're crazy and they're unstable and like it's not going to be a great turnout. Other than that, I would say just always publicly respond. It can really only help you, and keep in mind that you're talking to future people that might find you. When it comes to positive reviews, same options. You can publicly comment, you can send a direct message. But I do think it's important that you respond if you have the bandwidth to, and you don't have a huge influx of reviews across platforms. But if you have, whether you have something to add or nothing to add, you can put a public comment or send a direct message. Again, I personally always advise you should just publicly comment. It shows you have good customer service. And if we're treating the digital world, to the best of our ability, the way we might treat the in-person world, if someone gave you a compliment in person, you wouldn't just look the other way. You would say thank you and show appreciation. And so making sure that you, even if it's in a direct message, that you are acknowledging this person who took time to write a review. Only actually less than 1% of the hundreds of millions of users on Yelp actually write reviews. Less than 1% of the people write reviews. So if someone took time out of their day to write you a review on any platform, I highly encourage you to acknowledge it some way, somehow.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Ali. That's great
Sure.
advice. I think one of the questions, do you have any qualm or thought when it comes to rewarding folks that have written a positive review, if you do know who that reviewer is? And you want to turn around, if you're, I don't know, you're a restaurant, turn around, offer them here's a $10, $25 gift certificate, or, maybe some type of, product that your company offers that, might be just a small token of appreciation. What's Yelp's feeling on that?
Great question. And we'll talk even a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides. I think this is such a timely question, actually. But to just cut right through it, Yelp does not condone that. And there are a few reasons, and other platforms do. So I want to be clear on that. Like, I know for a fact that Google says like you should be asking for reviews, and that's the best way to get them. And you should have a link in your email signature. Like, they are very much so like ask away, ask away, ask away. We are not. And the reason why is because Yelp is the #1 most trusted review site. Out of all the review platforms, Yelp is #1. And the reason we are #1 is because we have what we call a recommendation software that doesn't just let any review get posted at any time. We'll dive into it a little bit more, but I guess I want to say the short answer is twofold. You don't want people just writing. People don't come to Yelp. When people come to Yelp, they are trusting the reviews that they find. And if I'm doing a search for a nail salon on Yelp and I see a 5-star review that says, which never happens, but that says, oh, they offered me like a free manicure, so like wanted to update this review because I wrote them a review. Like, I'm like, oh, that review feels fake, even though it was in response. So if you as the business reward after the fact, you're not necessarily dangling it like as a bribe, but you're more just giving it. I think that it isn't authentic in terms of like you should be providing an amazing customer experience, and they can thank you by writing you a review. You don't have to go and thank them again. And I think it taints the pool of reviews a little bit as far as other platforms go, when someone is giving something in exchange for a review. Like, word gets out, and then like other people start writing reviews, and you're actually like getting reviews in an inauthentic way because they probably want something for free. So it's tricky, and again, different platforms have different opinions. I know Facebook, I believe, is similar, where they're like, yeah, I asked for reviews, but there is a reason why Yelp's the #1 most trusted, and it's because the people that write reviews aren't getting offered anything in exchange. And usually when they are, and they're not like an actual Yelp user, where Yelp could see on the back end, did they do a search for a restaurant and then go to a restaurant and map directions and then write a review? Like, that's considered a trusted review, as opposed to like someone who just created a Yelp account and wrote a review and then never logged in again. That review probably won't get posted. And that's oftentimes why people have qualms with Yelp too, because they're trying to get reviews, and naturally you're asking for reviews. But we as a platform have hundreds of millions of users. We want them to find your business on Yelp, and we want to send them to you. We don't want you to take your customer base that you already have and then send them to Yelp. It's backwards. We let us send them to you, and then let us ask them for the review. We send push notifications and all that good stuff. Let us send you customers instead of you sending us your customers to then write you a review. We know reviews are helpful, so it can feel like backwards thinking. Like, why wouldn't I just ask someone to write me one then? It's a long answer. I will cover a little bit further as well.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So when we think about strategy for a second, I talk to a lot of businesses that say, I don't need Yelp, or I don't need to manage my reviews. We're just word of mouth, but that's what reviews are. It's a word of mouth marketing, just in the digital form. And we looked at that stat earlier. People are more likely, or just as likely, to trust a review from a complete stranger on Yelp, or maybe perhaps on another platform, than they are of their friend or someone that they trust. So keeping that in mind in terms of the importance, and it really is its own form of word of mouth marketing. So strategy wise, you want to set goals for customer success. What I mean by that is strategize a little bit, find out where people are already talking about you online. So again, that's not just on Yelp, but you can use different sites and different technologies to figure out where you're being mentioned across what platforms. And awareness is the first thing. Obviously, everyone on this call cares because they're taking time out of their day to hear a presentation like this. But making sure you're in the know and you're not necessarily like blindsided by a review, good or bad, that again, you're in the know of what's going on and you're able to like keep track of that. And once you're in the know and you have the right processes set up to make sure you're consistently in the know of what's going on, you want to start to identify some trends and themes across your reviews, right? I can't tell you the amount of times I've worked with clients and they're upset about some maybe, not so hot reviews that they're getting, but the same thing, same one or two things happen to be mentioned in each review. And if you think of, review sites as kind of like your secret shopper, especially for the people who have multiple locations, we operate out of 6 different areas or cities or zip codes, like you probably have a bit of a larger staff, like this is a great way to know what's going on, is seeing reviews from different places and then talking to your like core team about it, then talking to your employees about it, and kind of figuring out how to right that wrong and having a strategy in place. What is your policy if someone's really unhappy? If I said to you, like, what do you do if someone is just like absolutely livid with the service they received? What do you do if someone received really bad customer service from one of your employees? Like, do you have it written anywhere the way that you might have your mission statement or your business plan written? Do you have it written out what your policy is around customer service? And customer service and reviews are incredibly intertwined, so keep that in mind as you're thinking about it. But when it comes to trends, like for food-based businesses, like what is the service like, pricing and value, and really any industry actually, what are the facilities like, how are the amenities, what was customer service like, all things to keep in mind when you're checking out some trends. Develop a strategy for dealing with customer feedback, especially the tough feedback. Kind of like I was just saying, what if someone said to you, or what happens if you got a 1-star review? Knock on wood, I hope none of you ever do. But if someone wrote you a 1-star review right now, what's the plan? Do you have a template? Do you have something you would want to say? If the answer is no, that is totally fine. You're in the right place, but make one. Have something. Okay, if someone's upset with the product itself, we would write something like X. If someone's upset with the service, we would try and get on a call with them to show them that we are very empathetic and we apologize. Is your first step to have written communication, to get them on the phone, to try and meet up with them in person, invite them back in? What is the strategy? And it is completely different for every single business. And then you're going to want to amplify the positive. So this is where you can really share across platforms. If you get a 5-star review somewhere, go ahead and it gives you bragging rights, right? So if you get a 5-star review about Yelp, screenshot it. Maybe this client or customer, you can post on your Instagram and tag them, share the love. I think that we're living in a really crazy time, even just outside of the pandemic, what's going on with current events, share the love. If someone wrote something nice, people are excited to cheer you on. So feel comfortable. Some businesses say, oh, I don't want to seem come off a certain way. I'm just boasting. It's not like that. And consumers like that. And it could remind someone, oh, I want to leave them a review. Look how much they appreciated it. That's a more authentic way to try to get someone to write a review. You're almost leaving a trail of breadcrumbs of showcasing that reviews are really great. And at the end of a customer, interaction, saying something like, oh, how did you find me? And they say Yelp. You can say you know what, Yelp and reviews, that's so helpful to my business. Reviews are such an asset to my business. That is so much different than, oh, great. Well, if you liked the service that you received today, we'd really appreciate if you can go on. There's a difference between stating that something's helpful and you leave it up to the consumer to write a review versus asking for a favor when, to be frank, you just provided the bare minimum of a good customer experience. That's what they paid for. And it could leave a sour taste in a consumer's mouth to go and ask for a review. Again, that's Yelp's opinion. That's my opinion. That is not necessarily the case when it comes to these other platforms. They're pro you asking for reviews. A quick story just to shed light on that is pre-pandemic, I was getting ready for a trip to India, and I had an Uber driver, and he was stellar. He gave me the best. He was from Mumbai, India, and he gave me the best recommendations, things to do, things to not do. And as I was getting out of the car, of course, I was going to give him a 5-star rating, and I did. But it left a sour taste in my mouth because he got a little bit aggressive. I gave you all that advice and help. You have to give me a 5-star review. You're going to give me a 5-star review, right? And although I don't think anyone is aggressively pushing their customers to give them a 5-star review, it kind of just spotlights the feeling state that you could accidentally give a consumer by saying, could you please write me a review? In addition to that, it could ultimately lead to a bias. It's not totally unbiased, right? If let's say, you're a restaurant and someone found a fly in their food, you're not going to, as that person's walking out and they're unhappy, ask them to write a review. You are only asking the people that seem neutral to happy. You are not asking the person who seems a little bit off their rocker to write you a review. And that's why Yelp is so trusted, and kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Like, we are a place where there are only reviews written by real customers, and not only real customers, but likely Yelp. They found you on Yelp, and so then they're likely to write a review about you, as opposed to they found you elsewhere and you ask them for a review and then they come to Yelp. Like, Yelp tries to actually like take those reviews out of the mix, because again, naturally those reviews are very, very biased, just due to the fact that you're not going to ask the crazy lady who like didn't even pay her bill to go and write you a review. It's just not going to happen. Which is what we were just talking about. Don't interfere with the natural flow of reviews, inspire great reviews organically. And again, that's Yelp's policy. And Yelp will actually go in and do the asking for you. We'll email, we'll send push notifications, we'll send texts, we'll do whatever we can to try and get you that review. We're not trying to say like, don't ask for them and good luck. We know that reviews are important. And so we're trying to do what we can on our end from our app, from our mobile site, to ensure that people will go ahead and leave their feedback and leave a review. And you can leave that to us when it comes to the asking, rather than having you ask and again, just putting a potential bad taste in that person's mouth. Keep in mind the art of reciprocation. If someone receives a great experience, they are likely or would want to write about it, especially if they happen to be a user of Yelp, or like if they found your business on Facebook or on Google or on any of these platforms, they're likely to go. I don't know how relevant reviews are for these other platforms, because Facebook is also a social media place where you engage, right? It's not necessarily streamlined as just for businesses. But if someone found you on a certain platform, they're likely to then go leave your feedback. I know that to be true for Yelp. So on the note of inspiring great reviews organically, you want to uphold the integrity of your online reputation, of course. And so here are kind of a list of some of the don'ts. Don't offer freebies, discounts, kind of what we were saying earlier. Don't work with companies or third-party vendors. This is just in the sense of like, when companies promise that they could get like your 1-star review taken down. As marketers, I know you're all well aware of like what certain scams may or may not be. So preaching to the choir, but just keep that in mind. You don't want to ask for reviews, and you don't want to, like, of course, pressure anyone. I know this group doesn't need me to tell them they don't need to sue someone into giving them a review. And here is a quick checklist to attract customers while also embracing. This is really a review, like claim and manage your page, update your listing, add photos, add keywords to those photos as captions. Don't attempt to interfere with the natural flow of reviews. Do respond to reviews, the good and the bad. And of course, you're always welcome to explore some of our additional paid products, which would get you more exposure on Yelp. We also have an app that's completely separate from the Yelp consumer app. It's just for people who own or manage a business. And you can do all of the things we talked about today and more from the app. People are so busy, and we know that. So the app is it's a free app, free download, and it's available for both iPhone and Android. And it's a great way to keep track of what's going on, as part of what you get when you claim or like log into your Yelp business page. You have insight to how many times your page was viewed in a given time frame. You can see something like a Yelp user in her 30s from Manhattan, New York, clicked to call your business at 1:50 p.m. today. We give you exact metrics so that you know what's going on your page, when it comes to Yelp. I know there are a lot of great other great platforms that give metrics, but I can speak on behalf of Yelp and what we offer, and it's really great insight. And we have a ton of resources that aren't necessarily Yelp centric. So you'll see like 3 tips for adapting your sales and marketing during a time of change, do's and don'ts of responding to reviews. This is on our business blog.yelp.com. We have inspirational business stories. We highlight certain entrepreneurs. We have Yelp centric articles if you're looking for any like inspiration or how to's, but actually most of our content is not Yelp centric. And we talk about anything from how to create a business plan to 5 free things you can do on Yelp. And then Emily would have killed me if I didn't mention her amazing podcast. It's called Behind the Review. It is a podcast with Yelp and Entrepreneur Media. Emily is the host. It is awesome. They're quick 15-minute episodes. You can get it on any main streaming platform, totally free to listen to or download. The premise is basically we interview a business owner and we interview someone that wrote that business a review. Sometimes it's a 1-star review that consumer wrote. Sometimes it's a 4-star review, but there's like a dialogue between them and like why they picked that business, why they gave 4 instead of 5 stars, like all the things. So it's really insightful as you're starting to pay attention a little bit more to reviews and reputation management in general. And then the last kind of like resource I'll talk about here is we're throwing a Women in Business Summit. It is not only for women, it's also for any gender that are allies of women in business. And we have Bobby Brown as our headliner. The day is going to be hosted by myself and Emily. And you can register if you just type in Yelp Women Business and Summit into Google. It'll be the first thing that comes up. It's totally free. It's a full day worth of content on March 24th. So in just a little bit over 2 weeks. And we talk about everything from financing and funding your business to being a mother in a pandemic, running a business. So any marketers on the call, there's definitely going to be some really good takeaways. If you're unavailable, you can register and we'll make sure we send you the recording. So we covered so much. I'm from New York, so I'm like, talk so fast. I want to make sure I leave like at least 10 minutes for Q&A, but in kind of summary of the things that we talked about, communicate what's going on within the walls of your business. Consumers want information. Give them that information on your Yelp page, on your website, on your Facebook page, on any page you have, just give them information. If someone has to click to call to ask a question or write an email, you may have already lost them. So give them information, show safety measures, leverage the free tools that Yelp has to offer. So updating your information, creating what you would be proud to call your digital storefront, photos, things like that. And when it comes to reviews and your reputation across all platforms, promote the positive and always respond. That is great customer excellence. If you're not able to always respond, that's okay too. But make sure it's intentional. It's like, okay, we're only responding to 1 or 2-star reviews rather than the 5 stars. That is okay. Again, as long as it's intentional, and you're not just flying by the seat of your pants, hoping that 1 star never comes, which I do hope that never happens. But make sure again, that you just have a strategy and a plan in place.
Oh, that was really great, Ali. I appreciate it. And I'm sure that we have some questions. Folks, if you'd like to just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask, we can. Or you can certainly put them into the chat and I'll ask them for you. So again, thank you, Ali. Appreciate it. One of the things that you did mention was users, you're not always posting every review that comes in at Yelp. And I think you made a comment about if it's a 1 review user, so I'm new to the Yelp platform. I review a business, I hit submit. And is that review going to be submitted, or are you talking about subsequent or is that review going to be posted? How does that work? Can you give me a little insight?
Definitely. So really great question. So I barely touched on this before. We have something called the recommendation software. The short answer to your question is I don't know. Okay. I don't know what the engineers put into like what is or isn't approved. And if I knew, then I could tell people and people could game the system.
Right.
I do know that they're looking at a variety of things that aren't necessarily seen with the naked eye. So it's not as simple as like no profile photo and like first time ever review. But I would think that that in conjunction with a few other things could potentially look like it's not necessarily a real review. And I will also say that it has a tendency, this recommendation software, this algorithm, to be more strict than it is lenient. And the reason why, even though businesses often struggle and have a hard time with it, is actually to protect businesses. And it's so a business or an ex-employee or someone that doesn't like you can't go on and create 10 fake profiles and write you 10 one-star reviews. It is there to protect you and our site and therefore our consumers. And it's also so that businesses can't, go on and write, 5-star reviews about themselves or have their mom or their husband write a 5-star review, even if their husband is a real customer. It's still, again, a biased environment. So the algorithm is looking at a number of things like, it could be as simple as like the IP address. Maybe it came from your computer that is the same computer that's like logging into your own account. Like it's looking at a ton of things, again, all of which I don't know. Right. But the point of it is to protect businesses from spam reviews, to protect the site from businesses writing 5-star reviews about themselves, and not to throw shade to any other platform. But other platforms don't have that in place. And so that is why Yelp is used far more than any other platform out there when it comes to like searching for local businesses. And it can be, again, tough because there might be a real customer who you didn't ask for a review and they took time out of their day to write your review and it's not showing. And sometimes that's frustrating to the consumer too. But I will tell you, when someone's a trusted user, meaning they use the platform often, that creates a likely situation for that review to stick because they're a trusted user. We know they rely on the site. We know they do searches. We know that their intent to spend money at your business was real and wasn't because you offered something for free.
Sure. No, makes perfect sense. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, I guess we just don't know what the algorithms are, but you guys, Yelp is the gold standard. Doing some online reputation management work for some clients. It is. So, we certainly see it, and our clients see it as well. So, thank you. Are there any other questions? Not seeing any in the chat. Feel free to.
Yeah, I got one. Actually, I raised my hand, but I guess it's.
Yeah. So. Sorry, Cameron. Yeah, I can't see the whole gallery of everybody. So thanks.
All right. So the question, I think you did kind of cover it a little bit just now, but I am curious as to wanting to know, how does the Yelp sorting feature or algorithm, however you want to call it, how does it work?
Yeah, so I don't know. There's not like a lot of information as far as like what goes into the algorithm, other than just making sure that the person is a trusted Yelp user. There's actually a slide I kind of breezed over this one. And if you go to trust.yelp.com, it has, like, we just created this site to try and help give businesses and consumers a place we can send them when they're feeling frustrated that a review that is real, a genuine, real customer review isn't showcasing on their page. And it dives into a little bit further. So this could be a good place for you to check out. Again, trust.yelp.com. And here it says, our community is built on trust. Whether you're a consumer or business owner, you put your trust in us to provide information people can rely on to make good decisions. Long-winded way of saying that, we want to make sure that the platform is a place that people can rely on the information that they're seeing. And we've had plenty of situations where, let's just say like a business happens to be in the news, or like there was a viral video of a business owner being racist or something like that. And then all of a sudden that business page gets inundated with 1-star reviews. And we have a team in place dedicated to like making sure that things like that don't happen. And that's what the algorithm is meant to catch. Again, not these like one-off scenarios, but just things that aren't from real consumers. And along the way, some real reviews. For whatever reason, if it looks fishy to our site, the answer is, what goes into it is, if it looks fishy, it's gonna not show. Now, I don't know if you intended this when you asked it, but you said, how does Yelp sort? When you go to a business page and there are a list of reviews, it is actually called a Yelp sort, the way that.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just completely monologued about not even the right question. But what goes into that is how helpful the site feels that review is. So it's not chronological. It is usually if you have positive reviews, those usually try and show first, like as the first review. But I think it looks at like word count, the words that were mentioned, how trusted the user is, and it tries to deliver what it thinks would be most helpful to a consumer looking at the page.
That's interesting because, and probably learn more about this on this page that you're referring to right now. But at least from my experience, when having to do some online reputation management, with all the other sites, it was fine. But for whatever reason, with Yelp, when using the Yelp sort feature, since it's always by default, it always seemed to showcase the negative reviews, and then the legitimate positive ones were always kind of like hidden per se. So that's why I bring up that question in that sense, that it always seems to kind of like veer towards the negative ones, showcasing those than the positive ones.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, feel free to email me and I'm happy to take a look. My email, by the way, any of you can email me. It's my last name, which is Schwartz, SCHWARTZ at Yelp, schwartz@yelp.com. What I will say in regard to that, if you don't have any recommended, like positive reviews, you're saying they're hidden, which makes me think they might be in the non-recommended section, which doesn't play into the Yelp sort. So if you don't happen to have any like recommended and show it like 4 or 5 star reviews that are showing, that could be why. But if that's not the case and you have like a mix of recommended, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star reviews and only the negative ones are showing, I'd be curious to take a look. One other important thing to note that I should have mentioned is sometimes it looks different for different people. So if I look at a page for a restaurant that my friend on Yelp reviewed, I'll see that review first. So people see, if you have friends on Yelp, like you've sent a friend request, if you have friends on Yelp, those reviews will show first in your Yelp sort. That's another factor that goes into it.
Okay, makes sense.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Did we answer everything there, Cameron?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely will check out this page that's showing here to look more into it as well.
Cool.
Terrific.
Awesome.
Jen,
I think that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Hi. I just had a quick question, just based on a scenario that happened at the bank I work at. It primarily serves businesses, and there's so much check fraud right now that occasionally, like an employee of a client business will come in with, or maybe a vendor of a client business will come in with a check written, on our checks, and they're not clients of our bank, and they have these, multiple thousands of dollars worth of checks, and we have procedures in place that are particularly onerous if you're not a client. We've had 2 negative reviews over that process, and I'm just like, I'm not sure how to even make this better, because we do, have a lot of scrutiny if you're not a client of the bank and trying to cash a check.
Yes, I
So
totally.
I don't even know if like it's even worth. I mean, I respond and I'm sorry that this is the way it is, but we can't. I'm in marketing, so I'm not in compliance or on the bank side. I don't know. Maybe it's just a reality we've got to deal with.
Yeah, no, that's frustrating. And, we see similar issues come up with health and medical businesses. Their responses can confirm nor deny that this person was a customer or a client because of HIPAA. So I totally hear you. And I work with clients that run into this issue a lot. I think like curating a response that is the most like customer service friendly, and, feel free to email me your page and we can like kind of converse over what might make sense together. But But, it's tricky when we run into these situations where like compliancy is an issue in terms of like making sure that you're being compliant with the bank and what you're allowed to share and with like your clients. So it's a little bit of a trickier situation. So feel free to email me and we can kind of like come up with something that makes sense for those reviews. One other thing I'll say, and I know we're just about at time, is that if you ever have a review on your page that is just like completely not true, it was meant for the wrong business, has like, I don't know, like slander in it, goes against our content guidelines, it's just like not accurate or correct. We do have checks and balances in order. And again, like it's a review algorithm, it's a piece of technology, it's software, it's not perfect. And so you can always do what we call flag the review, which is essentially reporting it. You have to do that while you're logged into the business account. And you can kind of like write an explanation and a reason as to why. And then a human team will then look at that, as opposed to, again, just the algorithm is technology that's looking at it. And if they say like, no, sorry, there's a separate appeal process you can also do. So a different set of eyes. So, I'm not here to say like Yelp knows, like we're the true reviewers of the world. Of course, like mistakes happen. But we do have checks and balances in place. Jen, I don't think that's the issue we're talking about. It seems like people were just upset. They couldn't really accept like the current situation. But I did want to just mention that to the, rest of the group.
Actually, we did that on Yelp. We had someone actually put an employee's full name in there that and it wasn't relevant to the review anyway. It was removed after we flagged it.
Perfect. Okay, that's good to know.
And I guess one thing that I'll say from my experience, it's important that you use as simple language as possible when you are appealing one of these or flagging and then trying to get something removed, because the people that are reading it don't necessarily understand your business, and so anything that's acronymy, write it for a kindergartner is basically the rule there. That's something that a lot of businesses just have a hard time with. Well, we're at time, so if you have other questions, Ali, it sounds like you're okay with people emailing you at shorts@yelp.com. And what we will do is we will send out the presentation once we get the PDF slides from Ali. We'll send it out next week in our follow-up email as well. So that's the plan from our end. Ali,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure having you, and thanks for coming by and spending time with us. And have a great rest of the day.